José Copyright Alberto Pepe Mujica Cordano has been President of Uruguay since 2010. A former guerrilla fighter and a member of the Broad Front coalition of left-wing parties, Mujica was Minister of Livestock, Agriculture, and Fisheries from 2005 to 2008 and a senator afterwards. As the candidate of the Broad Front, he won the 2009 presidential election and took office as president on March 1, 2010. He has been described as the world's poorest president, due to his austere lifestyle and his donation of around 90% of his $12,000 monthly salary to charities that benefit poor people and small entrepreneurs. Early life: Mujica was born on May 20, 1935, to Demetrio Mujica, of Spanish Basque ancestry, and Lucy Cordano, a daughter of Italian immigrants. Mujica's father was a small farmer who went bankrupt shortly before his death in 1940, when his son was 5. His mother's parents were very poor immigrants from Liguria. Lucy Cordano was born in Carmelo, where her parents had bought 5 acres in Colonia Estrella to cultivate vineyards. Between the ages of 13 and 17, Mujica cycled for several clubs in different categories. He was also active in the National Party, where he became close to Enrique Erro, guerrilla leader. In the early 1960s, he joined the newly formed Tupamaros movement, an armed political group inspired by the Cuban Revolution. He participated in the 1969 brief takeover of Pando, a town close to Montevideo, but was later convicted by a military tribunal under the government of Jorge Pacheco Arico, who had suspended certain constitutional guarantees. Mujica was captured by the authorities on 4 occasions, and he was among those political prisoners who escaped Punta Carretas prison in 1971. He was eventually reapprehended in 1972, and was shot by the police 6 times. After the military coup in 1973, he was transferred to a military prison. In all, he served 14 years. During the 1970s, this included being confined to the bottom of a well for more than 2 years. During his time in prison, he remained in contact with other leaders of the Tupamaros, including Broad Front Senator Eleuterio Fernandez Huidobro and the founder and leader of the Tupamaros, Roel Sendic. In 1985, when constitutional democracy was restored, Mujica was freed under an amnesty law that covered political and related military crimes committed since 1962. Several years after the restoration of democracy, Mujica and the Tupamaros joined other left-wing organizations to create the Movement of Popular Participation, a political party that was accepted within the Broad Front coalition. In the 1994 general elections, Mujica was elected deputy, and in the elections of 1999 he was elected senator. Due in part to Mujica's charisma, the MPP continued to grow in popularity and votes, and by 2004, it had become the largest of any faction within the Broad Front. In the elections of that year, Mujica was re-elected to the Senate, and the MPP obtained over 300,000 votes, thus consolidating its position as the primary political force within the coalition and a major force behind the victory of presidential candidate Tabara Copyright Vaz Quez. Minister of Agriculture: on March 1, 2005, President Tabara Copyright Vaz Quez designated Mujica as the Minister of Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries. Upon becoming minister, Mujica resigned his position as senator. He held this position until a cabinet change in 2008, when he resigned and was replaced by Ernesto Agassi. Mujica then returned to his seat in the Senate. Political positions: Mujica's political ideology has evolved over the years from orthodox to pragmatist. In recent times he has expressed a desire for a more flexible political left. His speaking style and manner is credited as part of his growing popularity since the late 1990s, especially among rural and poor sectors of the population. He has been variously described as an anti-politician, and a man who speaks the language of the people while also receiving criticism for untimely or inappropriate remarks. Unlike President Vaz Quez, who vetoed a bill put forward by Parliament that would make abortions legal, Mujica has stated that should it come before him in the future, he would not veto such a bill. In the sphere of international relations, he hopes to further negotiations and agreements between the European Union and the regional trade bloc Mercosur, of which Uruguay is a founding member. On the Uruguay River pulp mill dispute between Argentina and Uruguay, Mujica was more conciliatory toward the Argentine government than the previous administration, and in 2010, the two nations ended their long-running dispute, signed an agreement detailing an environmentally monitoring plan of the river and setting up a binational commission. Good personal relations between Mujica and Argentinian counterpart Cristina Kirchner helped lead to the accord, although several bilateral issues remain unresolved, including the dredging of the shared Martin Garcia access channel of Rio de la Plata. Asked about Brazilian President Lula da Silva's decision to receive Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, he answered it was a genius move, because the more Iran is fenced in, the worse it will be for the rest of the world. Presidential candidate, even though President Vaz Quez favored his finance minister Danilo Astori as presidential candidate of the then unified Broad Front to succeed him in 2010, Mujica's broad appeal and growing support within the party posed a challenge to the president. On December 14, 2008, the Extraordinary Congress Zelma Michelini proclaimed Mujica as the official candidate of the Broad Front for primary elections of 2009, but 4 more candidates were allowed to participate, including Astori. On June 28, 2009, Mujica won the primary elections, becoming the presidential candidate of the Broad Front for the 2009 general election. After that, Astori agreed to be his running mate. Their campaign was centered on the concept of continuing and deepening the policies of the highly popular administration of Vaz Quez, using the slogan hoy un gobierno honrado, un por esta primary indirectly referencing cases of administrative corruption within the former government of the major opposition candidate, conservative Luis Alberto Lacalle. During the campaign, Mujica distanced himself from the governing style of presidents like Hugo Chavez or Evo Morales, claiming the center-left governments of Brazilian Luis Inacio Lula da Silva or Chilean socialist Michelle Bachelet as regional examples upon which he would model his administration. Known for his informal style of dress, Mujica donned a suit for some stops in the presidential campaign, notably during visits to regional heads of state. In October 2009, Mujica won a plurality of over 48% of the votes compared to 30% for former President Lacalle, falling short of the majority required by the Constitution, while at the same time renewing the Broad Front's parliamentary majority for the next legislature. A runoff was then held on November 29 to determine the winner. On November 30, Mujica emerged as the victor, with more than 52% of the vote over Lacalle's 43%. In his first speech as president-elect before a crowd of supporters, Mujica acknowledged his political adversaries and called for unity, stating that there would be no winners or losers. He added that it is a mistake to think that power comes from above, when it comes from within the hearts of the masses. It has taken me a lifetime to learn this. Government. Mujica formed a cabinet made up of politicians from the different sectors of the Broad Front, conceding the economics area to aides of his vice president Danilo Astori. The expectations were high, as Mujica is the first former guerrilla fighter to become president in Uruguay. In June 2012, his government made a move to legalize state-controlled sales of marijuana in Uruguay in order to fight drug-related crimes and health issues, and stated that they would ask global leaders to do the same. Mujica said that by regulating Uruguay's estimated $40 million a year marijuana business, the state will take it away from drug traffickers, and weaken the drug cartels. The state would also be able to keep track of all marijuana consumers in the country, and provide treatment to the most serious abusers, much like that which is done with alcoholics. In September 2013, Mujica addressed the United Nations General Assembly, with a very long discourse devoted to humanity and globalization. The speech called on the international community to strengthen efforts to preserve the planet for future generations and highlighted the power of the financial systems and the impact of economic fallout on ordinary people. He urged a return to simplicity, with lives founded on human relationships, love, friendship, adventure, solidarity and family, instead of lives shackled to the economy and the markets. Personal life. In 2005, Mujica married Luka Topolansky, a fellow Chmaro member and current senator, after many years of cohabitation. They have no children and live on an austere farm in the outskirts of Montevideo where they cultivate chrysanthemums for sale, having declined to live in the opulent presidential palace or use its staff. His humble lifestyle is reflected by his choice of an aging Volkswagen Beetle as transport. His wife owns the farm they live on. Some Uruguayans see him as a roly-poly former guerrilla who grows flowers on a small farm and swears by vegetarianism. He describes himself as atheist. International relevance: during the last month of 2013, the renowned Serbian film director Emir Kusturica started shooting a documentary film on the life of Mujica, whom he considers the last hero of politics. Honors and awards, references. External links: interview with José, copyright Mujica and Al Jazeera, further reading, Spanish, biography by CIDOB Foundation, Spanish, editorial publicada el July 11, 2011, en la red 21 Uruguay, del file cubed sofo Eduardo Sanguinetti, Mujica gesto de una fundeza cubed en, Spanish, editorial publicada el 21 de junio de 2012, en el diario La República, del file cubed sofo Eduardo Sanguinetti, el Nobel de la Paz para Pepe Mujica, Spanish, artículo publicado el 16 de abril de 2014, en el periódico El Diario, video, file cubed sofo Eduardo Sanguinetti arrepentido de haber propuesto a Mujica para Premio Nobel, Uruguay's president-elect, Che Guevara a unregistered trademark Espiritual Air by the Daily Maverick, Spanish, Lesser. La Revolución cubed en imposible, los tupamaros y el fracaso de la armada en el Uruguay. Fin de siglo, Spanish, Mujica, el viaje de un Chmaro, Spanish, Mujica Popagina 12, a euro en mi país vale la pena invertir a euro, Spanish, infolatum.com.